Hi, welcome to the High Lady Book Club.
My name is Jessie, and I love podcast discussions and deep dives.
And I'm Katie, and I love all things Sarah J Maas and outlandish theories.
So we combine those loves into a weekly Sarah J Maas discussion podcast. We'll be reading along to her books.
We're diving into Crescent City first, and class is starting now.
This is the English class you don't want to spark note. Welcome back to class.
Today we're going to be talking about Crescent City, chapters 5 through 7. So here's your spoiler warning. If you haven't read to this point, just stop here. Don't listen to this podcast. Come back when you have. So we're just going to jump right in. And I just want to know, Jessie, how are you doing after reading these traumatic chapters?
Well, I'm wearing my emotional support Era's tour shirt. I do feel devastated.
Yeah.
And I have a Taylor Swift song that I'm going to dedicate to Danika that I'll share after our recap.
I love that. I can't wait to hear what song you picked. But before that, maybe we should do our quick recap so people know why you need your emotional support shirt today.
Yes, so chapters 5 through 7. Chapter 5 opens up with Bryce, Fury, and Juniper up in the club at the White Raven. Fury and Bryce are doing Lightseeker, which seems to be cocaine.
Yeah.
Which is a fun name for it. Bryce is definitely feeling herself. She's living her best life, high AF. Mm-hmm. Juniper is abstaining from drugs, but hooks up with a fey male.
Yeah.
And Juniper had a very attractive description. And then it's like, she has these long legs that end in delicate hooves. And I was like, oh, threw me off a bit. And I'm wondering what her and a fey male hooking up would look like.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know, but I kind of don't want to know.
Yeah, sometimes
that's left.
Sometimes when she mentions stuff like that, I'm just like, I'm just going to accept that, and I'm not going to think any further into that.
Yeah, maybe just don't think too much into it. Yeah, so she goes off and is doing that, and Bryce is having the time of her life, dancing. She's thinking this is the best, like, Danika, like, I'm going to tell her all about this, and we have to kind of go out and do all this, like, together.
Yeah.
And there's also, so after she leaves the club, there's a very relatable scene of Bryce being totally drunk, and in her case, high on drugs as well. And she has a very long walk up to her apartment. Her heels are killing her feet, and she's contemplating just sleeping in the stairwell. And I think a lot of us have been there before.
Definitely.
Where you just think, should I just lay down here and just call it a night?
Just wanting to burn your shoes.
Yeah. Blisters.
You're like, what's worse, taking them off or leaving them on?
Yeah, I have had that debate a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking we've all been there, and I thought she wrote it very well.
Yeah.
Really captured the scene.
Perhaps she has been there herself.
Yeah, she
seemed to know the
It definitely seemed like a first-hand experience.
Yeah. And while Bryce is, stumbling along, she's also thinking about, like, Connor. And I feel like we got a little bit more perspective on Bryce's opinion of Connor. Like, last time it was, like, a little bit more information about the two of them. And, it was very clear Connor was into Bryce. But I think we get more perspective here.
Yes, she shares when they first met and that there was an instant spark and they both knew it. And Danika had told him basically to stay away.
Yeah.
Until recently.
Right.
Yeah, so that definitely helped shape, like, kind of change my perspective. Because clearly there'd been a thing.
Right. Clearly it was mutual, not just one-sided.
Yes. Yeah, so she's excited about them, like, kind of finally going on a date and thinking about
And
all
so
that.
I feel like we're like, you know, a little bit more cute on Connor.
Oh, yeah.
And then immediately bad things
take
happen.
a turn. I was not expecting it at all. So Bryce is like stumbling, like what key is it? She's all drunk and out of sorts. And then she realizes, like, she looks up and realizes the doorway is like torn apart. It's not even there. And there's a bunch of the wolf pack that's dead in the apartment.
Like in pieces.
Yeah. It sounds
described.
like a horrific scene.
And she's just like going around identifying each one and like, oh, that's the heap that was like Connor. And the heap that was Danika.
I was in denial. Like, as she was walking through the apartment, I was thinking, I was like, Danika, she's going to be like really injured, but like she'll be alive or she'll come back to life. I really wasn't expecting. Then she describes that basically Danika was like in pieces. And when I read that, I was like, okay, this is real. I don't think
there's no coming back from
really
this.
come back from that. And when she described that Connor looked like he had been maybe trying to like save her or defend her, that just was really sad. I couldn't believe that they both were dead. I was shocked and really sad.
I know.
But okay, we won't dwell too much. The story keeps going.
We gotta keep going.
There's a lot more that happens. She hears something and really it's the demon that had done all this that was either hiding or waiting for her, but starts running away. Mm-hmm. Bryce is chasing this demon into the streets. She's just thinking, I need to ID him for Danika's sake. Like, I need to just see what this demon looks like. Then she's running across the city. She ends up she finds it feasting on an angel that is in horrible condition, that it's like eating its heart or something like.
Yeah, I don't think it's just like feasting on it. But we're not like, at the time, the angel's, like when Bryce gets there, the angel is alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Bryce has to make the decision. Like, the demon ends up running off and the angel's there, like, bleeding out, probably going to die. So she makes the decision to stay and call for help.
Right.
Instead of continuing to follow it.
Yeah.
But she has this altercation with the demon where it wounds her. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where, and the demon gets away. That's kind of where that chapter ends.
Yeah.
And then chapter 6 opens up from a new perspective, which I was like, whoa, what is this?
Character.
I wasn't expecting that. Isaiah is his name, and it opens up from him watching Bryce behind a two-way mirror. And I thought this feels like a fantasy version of Law and Order.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, they're two-way mirror, interrogation style. Bryce is kind of being held in this area.
Yeah.
And we meet Vic, who's a wraith, who I felt like was playing bad cop.
Yeah.
And Isaiah and Hunt, a.k.a. Umbra Mortis.
Yeah.
Micah's personal assassin. They're kind of playing the good cops, which I didn't expect.
Right.
From the guy nicknamed the Shadow of Death. Or, I'm sorry, the magical being.
To be the good cop.
Yeah. Because, when we first heard about him, like, he just sounds like he's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But they felt like the good cops in this situation.
Yeah.
Because Vic is there, like, comes in and she's like, oh, like, because Bryce, she's devastated. She's in a terrible state. She's not talking. She's not saying anything. She looks half dead. And Vic comes in and is like, oh, like, you won't talk? Like, you won't tell us what happened? Here, let me play this recording of your best friend pleading for her life.
That was terrible.
And dying the most horrible death you could ever imagine. Like, now do you want to tell us what's going on?
Now will you talk? Meanwhile, she's not even a suspect.
They clearly know.
They, like, state that.
They state that they saw her walking home from the club.
Right.
I just thought that was,
they have
like...
all this information, and, like, Isaiah's like, she's a witness, not a suspect.
Right.
He, like, made that very clear. And meanwhile, this is what they're doing to her.
I know, like, my God, like, please traumatize this woman. Like, I mean, you're going to be traumatized from that for the rest of your life. That's not something you ever get over.
But maybe you wouldn't want to listen to the sound of it happening? I don't know.
This was so
That maybe
horrible.
wouldn't help.
I was horrified.
Yeah.
And then Hunt and Isaiah come in as like the good cops, and they're like, turn it off, but it's still kind of playing. And then Bryce just all of a sudden freaks out, like throws a chair, throws furniture, and then just like vomits.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And then Isaiah gets a call from Naomi, who's the 33rd's captain, kind of like in charge of their jurisdiction, and is like, Bryce is in the Fae, like, this isn't our jurisdiction, like, we can't hold her here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very CSI Miami, like, this isn't, I don't know, this is Tampa's region or whatever.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting to meet, all these new people, too. They're, like, part of Micah's Triari, or their 33rd Legion, so they're kind of, like, his own personal army. That's who these people are. And we learned that they have something called the halo on their, like a tattoo of a halo across their head.
Yeah.
Isaiah, Hunt, and Vic all have it. And it's because they're now like slaves. We learned they're slaves to the Republic because they participated in a rebellion against the Republic. We don't get a ton about that, but basically this tattoo is like put on their heads, and now they don't have access to as much of their power, and they are like literal slaves to the Republic.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just an interesting play on like the idea of like a fallen angel.
It's very poetic, and it makes you wonder how powerful, because they still clearly have powers.
Yeah,
when Bryce was doing her freak out, Isaiah used his power of wind to kind of shield him and Vic from the throw up and I guess the furniture.
Right.
And then Hunt uses his power of lightning. Or I don't know how he used that to protect himself, but he has the power of lightning.
Yeah, so all angels seem to have some sort of power related to like weather, like wind, rain, or whatever. But I think this line in the book is like a very Sarah J Maas-esque, like this is probably going to play a part at some point in this story, maybe like 6 books from now, knowing her, but it's the line, no one in living memory possessed Hunt's ability to harness lightning to his will. So that just feels like no one in living memory, like he's got to be someone special.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's some slave to the Republic right now.
Right. He is unique, and that definitely, it's going to come into play. It has to.
Yeah. So yeah, we also, like you said, we get a call, or Naomi gets this information, and we meet another new character, Rune.
Yes. Rune comes in right after Bryce they let her go, basically. And he's kind of all pissy and like, where is she? Hunt and Isaiah are like, how do you know Bryce? Like, what's your relationship? And he's like, oh, we're distant cousins.
Yeah. And he also introduces himself as the crown prince of the Valbaran Fae. And he's there saying, like, she's Fae, so she's like my jurisdiction.
Right.
Yeah.
So they never should have been holding her to begin with.
Yeah.
And I also forgot to mention that Sabine had come in,
oh my God.
Danica's mom, at one point, and is just like, where's that half-breed piece of trash?
Yeah.
Like, hates her, and he's like, she took the sword. Like, she seems mostly upset about, like, the sword more than her daughter, like, dying.
Right, yeah. She seems horrible.
Yeah.
This is the first time we meet her, but we heard about her in the last chapters, and she does seem maybe even worse than she was described.
Yeah, she seems pretty bad.
Yeah.
So things kind of end there and pick up with chapter 7. Bryce has been staying with her mom, I think in a hotel in the city for days, and is just depressed, hasn't really left the hotel until the chapter we're reading. She mentions that Ethan, Connor's younger brother, says she isn't welcome at Danica's sailing, which is their type of funeral custom, which I wasn't expecting. I guess clearly I don't know if they think that she has something to do with it or to blame. It wasn't clear to me why they would think Bryce shouldn't be there.
Yeah, but they seem pissed at her.
Yeah, they seem mad at her, which I feel bad for.
I
Like,
know.
gosh, she's really, you lost your best friend. They don't even want you to attend her funeral. That's just horrible.
Yeah.
So Bryce is going to this waterfront in the Bone Quarter, and she's saying that she's there to give Danika something to say goodbye to her. We don't know what it is that she's referring to. But it ends with her meeting some kind of terrifying creature that greets her. Mm-hmm. And that's, like, where the chapter ends.
Yeah.
That's where part 1, The Hollow, ends.
Yeah, part 1 of the book. Yeah. So a lot happened in these, like, 3 chapters.
Yes.
That kind of changed the entire course of, like, where we were going. We thought we had this, like, friendship. We were going to see this. We thought we were going to see, like, Connor.
Yeah.
And now all of that is gone. But we're also left on this big cliffhanger of, like, Bryce seeing this, like, creature or something. So I wanted to know if you have any guesses about what's going to happen immediately next.
So what I hope happens, my wishful thinking, I want it to be some kind of, like, I'm thinking it could be a demon or a Grim Reaper type of sorts that's somehow going to allow Bryce to see or speak with Danika one final time, or I don't know, maybe she'll make a bargain. Something like that. And Bryce does mention she has something for her, so that makes me think maybe she's going to be seeing her in some way. I hope so, because I want there to be a final memory that's a lot better than what Bryce had. And the description of the sailing, which is the funeral, said that if a person is deemed worthy, they will go to the Bone Quarter, where they'll spend eternity. So, and that's where Bryce is, at the Bone Quarter, so I'm hopeful. Yeah. But that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I obviously know what's going to happen next, so I'm not going to weigh in. But I do have a confession to make. So, on the back of the book, in the summary, it does say that all of Bryce's friends get murdered. So, going into this, myself and a lot of people who read it, like, knew, like, we got to start reading the book knowing, like, don't get too attached because she's gonna die.
Wow.
So I just kind of really wanted you to be crushed. just have the full pain experience.
It wanted me to experience the true pain. Wow, what a good friend.
I just felt like I wanted to know what it would be like.
You were trying to live vicariously through me.
Yeah.
Your own little, like, experiment. Yeah, well, it was rough. Yeah. Now you know.
Yeah, it was sad on my end too, but yeah, I just feel like you were like, oh, and like, it's going to be so fun to watch them. Like, I love the friendship. And
yeah, I thought, when you said Broad City, Abby and Alana, I was like, I was expecting, like, that they were going to go off and have that kind of friendship. I know it's a book, like, stuff's going to happen, but I was expecting them to go through it together.
Right.
Yeah, so I was shocked and sad. I think I probably feel sadder than people would if they had read. Yeah. Because I was, like, envisioning this whole future with them. That sounds silly, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I can share my Taylor Swift song that I chose.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to hear this.
I chose what I personally think is one of the saddest Taylor Swift songs there is, in my opinion.
There are a lot of those, so.
There are a lot. This one, I think, it's not maybe the saddest, but one of the saddest.
Okay.
Bigger Than the Whole Sky from Midnight.
That is really sad.
So I chose some words from the song that I wanted to honor Danika with.
I love this.
Read these in her honor. The beginning of the song starts, no words appear before me in the aftermath. Salt streams out of my eyes and into my ears. Every single thing I touch becomes sick with sadness. because it's all over now, all out to sea. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. You were bigger than the whole sky. You were more than just a short time. I feel like those lyrics really capture a lot.
Yeah.
Because in their life, they were going to drop into immortality and live thousands of years together. So the time that they did have is like incredibly short. Mm-hmm. And also I think all out to sea kind of really goes with the funeral custom as well. And also the beginning, just how devastating it is for Bryce. Yeah. And then some other sad lyrics I'll go over. I've got a lot to live without. I'm never going to meet what could have been, would have been, what should have been you. I think that fits not only with how devastating the loss is, but that kind of what I was saying, that they had their whole lives ahead of them. And that Danika seemed like, I mean, she was such a powerful, like, kick-ass, take names kind of person.
Yeah, she was kind of bigger than the whole sky, if you will.
Like her potential, like the potential that she had. And I think we already saw what good she was doing, like stopping terrorists.
Yeah.
And so that, like, this whole life and her potential is now gone.
Yeah. Not even just like that Danika was bigger than the whole sky, but even just to Bryce, clearly this person was like everything to Bryce. They were just so close. So, yeah, well, thank you for that beautiful dedication. I feel like that's a nice note to leave off of for Danika. I feel like we should change topics a little bit, get out of our sad feels. We met a new character, Rune Danon, the Crown's Prince of the Valbaran Fae, and I want to know what your thoughts are on him.
Yes, so when it first described him, it describes, like, dark hair, tattoos, a lip ring.
Yeah.
So I immediately was like, this seems like it could be a potential love interest. He sounds hot.
A classic Sarah J Maas love interest.
Yes. The tattoos, dark features. Yes. He had those vibes. And then also when they're inquiring about the relationship and he's like, oh, we're very distant cousins. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of distant cousins in another series I won't say. But I was like, oh, is this like distant cousins? But like things might still happen.
That's kind of so funny because I don't remember my first reaction, but I didn't really put that together until now, the like relation to her other series. But actually, I kind of want to pull us back to chapters 1 through 4. So do you remember Danika and Bryce have this conversation about a half-brother named Rune Danon? And so we heard, okay, he's her half-brother. And then he's like kind of saying he's her cousin. But we also learned that he's the crown prince of the Valbaran Fae. So kind of sounds like Bryce is actually a princess, maybe.
Yes.
And daughter of the Autumn King.
I did not put that together.
Yeah. Very subtle.
And now that you say that, I remember Danika saying it. Because I remember Bryce clarifying, like, he's a half-brother.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like, oh, I'm going to see your brother. And Bryce is like, no, my half-brother.
Yeah. So clearly they're both trying to they don't want it known, really.
Yeah.
He's saying they're distant cousins. And she just seems from her conversation with Danika, like, I don't want
to talk about him. I'm not that related to him. He's only half.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems like they're keeping it a secret for sure.
Yeah, so I wonder why. And it seems like Bryce maybe doesn't want to claim that part of her.
Yeah.
Is the vibe that I get.
Yeah, because she's apparently a princess. It's kind of, that could change a lot of things.
Yes. It reminds me of another series. So I think maybe we should give a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
So, because we want to discuss Sarah's other two series, ACOTAR and Throne of Glass.
Yeah, so this is a good time. Basically, I think the rest of our podcast we'll have some spoiler warning, or some spoiler information.
Yeah.
So if you haven't read Throne of Glass or ACOTAR, all of those books, right? All of those books.
Yeah.
stop listening now so you're not spoiled.
Yeah. Yep. Turn it off because we're about to get into it.
We're about to get into it, yeah.
Because that makes me think of her kind of hiding her identity, made me think of Selena Aylin.
Yeah, interesting.
How, as a reader, you didn't know. But now we're putting it together. It makes me think, is this going to be a similar, eventually she's going to claim that?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like there's potential for that.
Yes. And it's interesting as well because Hunt and Isaiah say that, like, she doesn't have a lot of power. They say she has, like, the full Savitas.
Yeah, so it's interesting that she's full Savitas because I remember Hunt saying, or at least thinking to himself, whoever her, like, father is, it must be somebody with pretty good standing to be able to get her full Savitas,
Right.
because he had to pull some strings, which now we know he's the Fae King, the Fae Autumn King, so it makes sense, but it doesn't have anything to do with her power.
Okay.
Which was, like, near negligible.
Right. That's what I'm surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't see that being the case.
Right.
Like, I feel as though she's way more powerful than these people think.
Yeah.
Or she's going to be able to tap into it maybe when she drops into her immortality. Because I just can't see being a child of a Fae King and not being powerful.
Yeah. That doesn't make much sense. And also just what we know about all of Sarah J Maas's heroines. Aylin, Feyre, Nesta.
They're powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
So
that's why I'm like, I think that's going to change.
It is interesting. But I mean, on the flip side, Bryce has so far just felt the most, like, down-to-earth normal of all of her. Or
most
at least
relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out about that.
To keep reading and find out.
But the other thing that this kind of immediately reminded me of was, of course, Akatar, the Autumn Court High Lord.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with, like, the Autumn King? Could they be the same person? Are they, like, distant relatives?
Yeah, the same bloodline that
Yeah.
somehow some of the relatives came in through the Northern Rift.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. And I also just want to know, is the Fae Autumn King as much of a dick as the High Lord of the Autumn Court?
Yeah. It sounds like he could be.
Yeah.
Because the way that Bryce has talked about her dad, it doesn't sound great.
Right.
And the fact that her mom kind of ran away when she was pregnant and didn't want the dad to even know.
Yeah.
Makes me think there's a good chance he's a dick as well.
He's probably an alpha hole, as Bryce calls everybody.
That's right. So maybe they're brothers.
Yeah. Yikes.
Oof, would not want those two in the same world.
Honestly. But I think there's also interesting parallels in, like, their looks. Like, Bryce has red hair, and that kind of reminds me of Aerys and our good friend, why am I blanking on his name with the I? Lucian, yeah. Lucian.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of them.
They all have the red hair.
Yeah. And then also the magic. So the Valbaran Fae have fire magic. And that's also what the Autumn Court has in Akatar. So I feel like they've got to be related somehow.
Yeah.
Came in through the Northern Rift. I don't know, like, who specifically, but that's interesting. Maybe we'll learn the Autumn King's name at some point.
I do feel like there are not coincidences with Sarah J Maas.
Never.
This means something.
Definitely. And we also learned about the Fae Isle of Avalon, and they have interesting powers as well. So they have powers to summon shadows or mist that could not only veil the physical world, but the mind as well. Perhaps even telepathy, which those are Rune's powers too.
And that reminded me a lot of Rhys and Feyre and their abilities.
Yeah.
To get into people's minds and create barriers and those kind of things.
Yeah,
too.
and they could, like, listen. Rhys and Feyre can, like, listen into people's thoughts and, like, even change them. But this one, it's like, I don't know. It seems like telepathy. Like, could they do that as well? Does Rune have this power too?
Yeah, it sounds similar,
but a little different.
Yeah, it does sound different, and it also maybe Azrael with his shadow singer abilities.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of reminds me of that with, like, the mist and
being
the
able
shadows.
to summon shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That does give off. I think technically his name is pronounced Azrael, but I always say Azrael. I don't know.
Just one of the many fun parts of Sarah J Maas.
World.
Everyone has their own. Though, whatever Sarah J Maas says is correct.
We'll go with her.
Yeah.
Azrael. But yeah, so it did give Azrael vibes for sure. The shadow wielding stuff. So I don't know. I just feel like clearly they have to have some relation.
Yeah. It's intriguing.
Yeah, it is. Also, we learned that Rune has something called a star sword, which was made from iridium mined from a meteorite. Specifically, it says, forged in another world before the Fae had come through the Northern Rift.
Yes, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it immediately made me think, like, the meteorite and it coming from a different world made me think of ACOTAR.
Yeah.
Especially the Night Core.
Right.
Starfall, and there's all, like, the falling stars. Are there also meteorites?
Interesting. And, yeah, so I did a little digging into A Court of Silver Flames. That's Nesta's story in ACOTAR. And there's something called Gideon's Sword. And it's an ancient sword. That's power is described as holy and like having a savior's light. Star sword, interesting. And it vanished around the time that the Dread Trove went missing. And it belonged to a true Fae High King in Prithian, who had been betrayed by his own queen and his fiercest general, and the lands fell into darkness again. And it's been missing from Prithian for a millennia. And it was described dark as night and made from meteorite.
Wow.
I don't know.
It feels like there is a very high chance that these are one and the same.
I mean, they have to be, right? Very interesting.
Yes, I think there's a very high likelihood. And that is fascinating because it would make sense if it's been missing for a millennium and there's this whole other world that's been happening with their own history.
Yeah, and we know that the Star Sword came from another world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that it was from a true Fae king and his queen and fiercest general betrayed them. Did they leave and go bring it to this other world?
Yeah.
And maybe there somehow had started these new bloodlines.
Yeah. Like, could that have been the Autumn King?
Yeah.
Or somebody in the Fae Isle of Avalon? Or is it just a completely different person that we don't know yet? I don't know.
Yes.
Some interesting theories.
There's a lot of parallels here that are very, very intriguing.
Yeah.
Another one, there's mention of Danika's sword, which we know is at Griffin Antiquities, that Sabine is looking for. She doesn't know where it is.
Right.
Bryce is potentially maybe the only person who knows where it is.
Right.
And this is Danika's family sword, the Fendir family sword.
Yeah. And the sword, there was a line in like the first 4 chapters that said something along the lines of, this sword was famed both in this city and far beyond it. And so now knowing like this connection between potentially Gideon and the Star Sword, I'm kind of thinking, how far is far beyond it? Like, could it be famed in another world?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't able to find as many close parallels, but the one I do kind of think is interesting with Danika is Fenris from Throne of Glass. So he's a Fae, but in Throne of Glass, the Fae are shifters. They have like another form. And Fenris's form is a wolf. Interesting.
That it is. And his last name is Moonbeam.
Yeah, his last name is Moonbeam.
Their names are so similar.
Yeah.
Fenris, Moonbeam.
And Danika, Fendir, or Fender. And
Moonwood is where
lives
they live.
in Moonwood.
Like, that's where the wolves, that's their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of...
Yeah, I just feel like there's some parallels there. I didn't see any like specific sword in Throne of Glass attributed to Fenris to be comparing this to. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, though.
Right, that it couldn't have maybe made its way over.
Before Fenris got it. And also, Fenris has golden hair and onyx eyes. And Danika has silvery blonde hair and caramel eyes. So some, like, similarities in their physical appearances, maybe enough that they could be related.
Yeah.
I don't think we can rule it out.
Distant cousins.
Distant cousins, perhaps.
Yeah, so there's a lot of parallels between all three of these series.
Yeah.
Which is very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to read more, especially after that cliffhanger that I was left with.
Yes. I can't believe I'm always entertained. Jessie is just a truly, I never want to be spoiled. Like, I asked her, I said, did you flip to the next page? And
I didn't. I feel like everyone is getting my true, what I think just based off of the chapters we say.
Yeah.
So I'm really ready to know, like, where this story is going to go.
Yeah.
Because it's not going where I thought it was going.
No.
It has taken a completely different turn, and I'm really excited to finally get into it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot more.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be doing that. The story's going to start picking up for sure, and we will also be picking up our pace. So we've had these, 4 chapters, 3 chapters. We're going to jump now. So for our next class, we'll be discussing chapters 8 through 14. So make sure to read those this week.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen, and I'll break it all down and we'll discuss.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss.
Definitely. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next class. Thanks for attending English class today.
To keep the discussion going, join us on Instagram at the High Lady Book Club.
Make sure you do your homework for next week, and we'll see you back here.